Greetings. Well, I'm standing here in the garden, and today's subject is about poisonous plants. I get questions about them frequently in the nursery business. People would come in and say, "Oh, I want plants for my garden, but I can't have anything poison." That creates quite a problem for any schooled nursery person, because they understand so much of the plant kingdom is laced with strange chemicals, and most people just don't know that. So I thought I'd talk about it. It happened a couple times here in the last week that I had people in the nursery who came in, and I'm selling them some plant material, and then they brought up, "Oh, well, isn't that plant poison?" Yes, it was poison, definitely. Anyway, I'm standing here right next to one of my favorite poison plants. That plant right there is the tomato. Now the tomato is edible as far as seeds and fruit. All other parts of this plant are toxic. They contain some pretty strange chemicals. Now, I suppose many of you know that, when the tomato was first brought to Europe from the Americas, most Europeans refused to eat the thing. They thought they were going to get poisoned because the berries in the plant are somewhat related to the deadly nightshade that they had in Europe, and so they assumed this was a poison plant. And to prove it for all of you in the Middle Ages, no, I'm fine. It's the leaves, the roots, stems, stay away from them. Another common poison plant in that group, in the Solanaceae, is eggplant. Yep, eggplant, every part of the plant except for the fruit and the seeds are poisonous. Now, they don't grow very well here in Hawaii, so I don't have a plant to show you, but the common potato, the spud. This one's from supermarket. The potato is another common poison plant. The vines, the fruit, leaves, everything except the potato tuber. And if the potato tuber becomes green in sun, then it also develops the chemicals. Some of them not too good for you. Make sure you well peel any green spots off potatoes before cooking them. Right here over my head is another one of the very common poison plants. This is the angel's trumpet, Hydrangea. This is the one that started the conversation in the nursery the other day. This plant is pretty well known, I guess because the news media, where people, college students and so on, trying to consume this, have poisoned themselves. All right, so it's been in the media. Now it's in the tomato family with the potatoes and the eggplants, so I'm taking that whole group kind of as a mass here. Pretty much everything in that family has some sort of strange compound or another. This one's got a cluster of them. Some of them are very interesting. I mean, like scopolamine. Scopolamine's been used as an anti-nausea nausea medication. It's been used for motion sickness. Been patches based on this stuff. Scopolamine is also what used to be called truth serum. Somehow it breaks down the human will, and now these days I understand in Colombia and South American countries where drug cartels need to extract something out of a guy, they'll dose him with this stuff. Supposedly it makes him susceptible to persuasion. That's what truth serum was supposed to do. There's also a couple others in here. You got atropine. Atropine affects heart rate. It's another one here that I don't know too much about. Hylosamine. I may have the pronunciation wrong. It has positive effects in the GI tract, actually. So all three of the compounds that are known in here that I've listed actually have medicinal values. So they're not just poisons. The difference between medicine and poison is how much did you take, and that's the case with this plant. Now, it's gotten itself in trouble as an herb because it is used in shamanic practices in South America. It's an admix plant to ayahuasca, which is a hallucinogenic brew used by shamans also used by some Americans seeking things. This can be mixed into that along with a bunch of other plants. So in certain doses, it can be an intoxicating drug substance, and that's how it got a bad rap here. People thinking they could get high on it. I understand the leaves have even been smoked in certain treatments too. So it's an herbal cure, a drug plant, and a poison. And for me, the main reason this thing is here, the flowers smell so good, it grows really well, and it is very pretty. I don't eat it. I have a couple of colors. There are a few people here on the island that really breed these. I've seen some amazing varieties of this plant here I didn't know existed. But it has a peculiar aspect in that the perfume in this plant only comes on at dusk. I mean, right now there's nothing here. Tiny bit. If I really put my nose down in the flower, I can smell a little perfume. But in the evenings, as the sun begins to set, this thing opens up for some reason. I guess it's triggered by the light. I don't know. But the perfume then is released into the air, and I smell it on the other side of the house. This is a plant that I oftentimes don't like outside my bedroom window, because in summer, if the window is open, I can hardly sleep. The perfume is so thick. This right here is the elderberry. Yeah, I was at arsenic and old lace, elderberry wine. Yeah, okay. Now, this plant actually listed, they claim, every part. Now, I don't know how they get by with the elderberry jam and the elderberry wine with that information. So I kind of question, because people use the berries on this plant quite a bit. Lately, it's become very popular because the belief that the syrup from the berry has an antiviral. Okay, and it may or may not be, I really don't know. But what I can tell you is that it is toxic if you're trying to eat the plant otherwise than the berries. Alrighty, well, this thing right here behind me is an avocado tree. Hey, we all love guacamole, right? Yeah, well, the avocados, unfortunately, are another poison plant in your garden. Avocado bark, seeds, and leaves are inedible. Now, I know that on the Mexican varieties where the leaf smells like anise and it's crushed, we don't really have Mexican avocados here in Hawaii, but if you do in California or maybe in Florida, I know that leaf is used as a seasoning in Mexico. So apparently in limited quantities, the Mexican avocado leaf is probably edible. But otherwise, this is Guatemalan back here, and we have West Indians here, and the bark don't eat it, the twigs don't eat it, the leaves don't eat it, the seeds don't eat it. Just make the guacamole and enjoy your avocados. This little plant right down here is the common hydrangea. This is the macrophylla type large leaf hydrangea. It's a blue form. Probably be white if you put it into a more alkaline soil, but here it usually turns very blue. It's going out of bloom, and so it's losing its grandeur. But that's the plant, and its compound is cyanide, one of the more deadly materials you can think of. Beautiful plant, we all love them. They're out in most gardens around the country. It's full of cyanide. This little guy right here is an azalea with the pink flower on top. It's in the rhododendron family, and everything in the rhododendron family is toxic. This one right here is the tropical relative. This is the tropical rhododendron, or the Virrea. I have all sorts of them. They have large flowers, big flowers, little flowers, blah blah blah. Granotoxin is the problem with these. The chemical is in every part of the rhododendron plant. It is even in the nectar, and the honey from this plant can induce madness. This stuff right over here is taro, known in Hawaii as callo. It is a member of the Caucasians. It is in the Aramacea. Everything in the Aramacea is poisonous, including taro, although this has numerous different varieties, some of which are more edible than others, and some require more processing and cooking than others, etc., etc., etc. The plant is definitely eaten here. Okay, there might not be a Hawaii if it wasn't for kalo. So it's an important food in this area, but it is a member of the Aromaceae that includes things like philodendrons, elephant ear plants, which are alocaceas. They all contain calcium oxalates. It's oxalic acid. It's bound into a calcium crystal. The stuff is not directly a poison per se, okay, like it doesn't attack the heart or things like this. What it does is there's crystals in there of calcium oxalate, and the crystals, they get into your throat and into your mouth, and they'll make your tongue feel like you stuck a bunch of needles into it. If you get too much of it into your throat, you can have a real problem trying to breathe, and yes, you could probably choke yourself to death if you did this, right? And the Jack in the Pulpit. Jack in the Pulpit plant is also in the Aromaceae. That's a common plant in northeastern U.S. woodlands. I think a lot of you probably know Jack in the Pulpit if you're from that area. That was actually used by Native Americans as food. Just like kalo, it has a large root, the tuber bulb underneath there, and it's white, relatively good tasting, fairly crunchy. It's not bad at all, provided that you process it properly. I believe like mashing and boiling. Boiling definitely helps break down these crystals. That's what's done with taro sometimes. And I think also, again, mashing is an aid when that comes to... but I once experimented as a young man, curious about this, and so I subjected myself to calcium oxalate poisoning, since I know I'm going to die. Oh boy, you don't want to do that. Man, oh man, I tell you, a ghost chili is good food. Oh man, I bit into the root, and the root tastes good, it feels good, it crunches nice, it smells nice. Yeah, it seems like a food we should be eating, and then, 30 seconds later, all of a sudden I had daggers all over in me, and God, I only took a bite. Yeah, it's fairly nasty. I can see how people could get really messed up from that, so be careful. This plant with the notched leaves right here is a philodendron. It's also in the Aromaceae. It is also non-edible. There are dozens and dozens and hundreds of different kinds of this, different forms. We use a lot of them for house plants. We also use a lot of them for landscape items here in Hawaii. We also have a lot of them that have escaped from the houseplant industry here and are covering the woods. So there are a few that are really a problem here. Most are not. This is not one that's a problem. This is Xanadu. It's a nice dwarf philodendron. It takes quite a while to grow. This plant's maybe 3 feet tall and maybe 3 or 4 feet across. It was planted in 2007, so it didn't go anywhere fast. Here I have the adenium, otherwise known as desert rose. This is another one of the poisonous plants. Again, it has a milky sap that's toxic. I don't know what the chemicals are in this one, but it's on the lists of things that you really shouldn't be eating. Mine, unfortunately, is out of bloom today. That's why we grow these. They're rather drought tolerant, and they have fabulous flowers. They're really beautiful. 3 guesses, right? This is aloe vera. Aloe. Yeah. It's another poison plant, folks. I know most of us use this. I do. I use aloe quite a bit. The Chinese guys I know, they tell me, it'll fix this. I tried. No, it doesn't work for baldness, but it does work really well on skin irritation, sunburns. It's also antimicrobial, but that is only the gel in the center of the leaves. On the outside of that, there's a thin layer of a yellow material that's actually toxic. You can almost smell it when you open up aloe plants. Sometimes there's a fragrance that comes up. I don't know. For me, it's almost like It's a little bit like BO. I don't know. It's a strange smell. Anyway, I believe it's the smell of that particular chemical, because the gel itself doesn't seem to have that much fragrance, but there's that smell in there when I open it. California aloes had more of it than Hawaiian aloes. There's something about California weather made more of that. It's aloin is the name of the compound that's in there. And again, it's the yellowish looking stuff. When you open them up, you may have noticed this. I don't know if you make your own aloe. I know a lot of people use this stuff internally, and I assume the people who sell it as internal medicines, because I guess it will work for constipation and a few other things that way. But I assume they are removing most of that when they're processing it. So if you're doing it yourself in the garden and you're going to eat it, remember, look out for yellow sap. Don't step on yellow. No. Other plants with sap problems, milky sap problems. Of course, most of us know the poinsettia is poisonous. And so is actually most of the stuff in that whole group. That's Euphorbiaceae. And so the African milk trees in your house plants, and oh boy, another one with poison sap. This one here, ficus, the fig. Yeah. Fruits are edible on almost any fig, as far as I know, no matter what sort. The fruit is edible. The wild figs are commonly eaten by animals in Africa and so on. We love to eat our figs. And so the figs are good to eat, but the sap is not. It's toxic. A lot of milky sap plants are that way. Some of the plants that I do not have in my garden here, because it's Hawaii and we're tropical, but are very common in parts of the mainland, the lily of the valley. My mother grew this all along. It was wild and wet spots, even in the city of Chicago, and it's toxic. Mom always warned me, don't eat that plant. I've seen warnings say when you're handling it, even use gloves, wash your hands, blah, blah. So lily of the valley is definitely one of those plants that you do not want to put in your mouth. Foxgloves, the foxglove flower, trumpet the flowers, The foxglove's beautiful. I love it. It's a great biennial, most of them. There are a few perennial foxglove. There's also larkspur, which is kind of more annual type foxglove. They all contain digitalis, and digitalis affects heart rhythms. It has been used pharmaceutically for that purpose for a long period of time. It's probably even still used a little bit in some places. It works. It will regulate heartbeats. Anyway, you eat into that stuff, you get into the wrong, too much of it, and so on. You're going to start to have fluctuating heart rhythms and whatnot. Not good. Narcissus, daffodils. Have you ever noticed that nothing eats your daffodil bulbs? Right. Squirrels know, don't eat those. Gophers know, don't eat that. If you got trouble with gophers and ground squirrels out there in the landscape and you want flowers, in the early spring, late winter, narcissus is your baby. They're quite toxic. They really don't want to eat them. Look great. Some of them smell great. Real good garden flowers. I highly recommend them, but they are poisonous. Oleander, I think most of us know that one. The oleander is movies based on poisons made from the plant and so on. They're in gardens all over California, and we almost never hear of poisonings from them unless it's intentional. Somebody was trying to get rid of their spouse and fed it to them. There's a short list on a lot of the ones that we call ornamentals and a few of the edibles. I want to go back to the edibles now because I started with my favorite, the tomato. And so let's talk about our food. Yeah, again, I've had people for years come to me and say, I want plants, but I can't have any poison plants in my garden. So, well, pull out the tomatoes, throw out all them potatoes in your refrigerator, don't eat eggplants, blah, blah, blah. But some of them that most people are not aware of, almost anything in the stone fruit group or in the pip fruit group. Now, most folks will say, what's a pip fruit? Yeah, pip fruit is, most notably apples, pears, quince. There are others, but those are the main ones right there. The seeds are toxic, cyanide. On record, I believe there's a gentleman who once liked apple seeds so much he saved them up, and he ate an entire cup of them. I think it was 125 apple seeds it took to kill the man. Yeah, he didn't live through the experience. Pear pits, again, same situation. Quince pits, same situation. Don't eat them. The fruit's great. But don't eat the pits. Now that goes on in stone fruits too, and so to identify stone fruits, it's all of your prunus, your apricots, peaches, nectarines, plums, most commonly there. The inner kernels of the seed on all of those are poisonous. Again, cyanide. Apricot pit has some interesting B vitamins in it that have been banned by the USDA. Laetrile was a material derived from apricot pit that was being used as a cancer cure. Whether it did or did not work, I don't know. But perhaps it was the lacing with the cyanide or the potential danger from consuming the pit that caused it to be banned. We don't sell that here anymore. I move into nuts. Black walnuts, the hulls, and so on, the husks, the leaves, not good. They contain jugulone, and in the right amount, the stuff is toxic. Another nut, cashew. Now, I could have shown you the plant. I have one back here, but I don't have any fruit on it. It is the cashew nut shell that's the problem. The cashew itself is fine. But the nut shell contains the same compounds that we find in poison ivy and poison oak. The mango is also in that group, although, beware of mango sap, right? Some people I know who are extremely susceptible to poison ivy, if they get near the stem end on a mango, I've seen one of my sons, his lips just all swelled up on him, just from sucking at the stem end on the mango, because there was enough concentrated right there to affect him. Now, in most of us, it's not going to matter. Just stay away from the sap. That's the main thing here. Cashew, same thing. Don't handle the cashews unless you know what you're doing. Generally, it's neutralized by fire. Roasting is one of the ways they deal with that. Watch out for the smoke. In the cherry, we can also include twigs. Beware of, if you have goats or something like this, don't go feeding cherry leaves or plum leaves or any of that. It contains a lot of prussic acid. It's the main problem there. And so, don't give it to your livestock. If they're reaching for it over the fence, stop them. Stop them. Don't let the goats into it. Oh, another one of the edibles. I think a lot of us know this one. Rhubarb. Only the stalk on rhubarb. That's it. The rest of the plant is pretty much poisonous. You stay away from it. The fava bean, undercooked. If the fava bean is undercooked, it contains some toxins that are not good for you. I don't know, personally, I like them for cover crops, and they work fairly well for winter cover crops here in Hawaii. I've often used them as green manure. They're good for that. But, as far as eating the beans, when somebody else prepares them and they know exactly what they're doing, and like they make follow madamas or something like that, I enjoy it. It's fine. But if I have to cook them myself, talk about an irritating vegetable. You got a pod. You got to take the pod off. Once you get the pod off, then you got to go ahead and take the beans out. You boil the beans. Well, the beans got a skin on them. It's inedible. So you got to pop the bean out of the skins, And there is a black scum that tends to rise in the pot when I cook them that I have often identified as the possible agent here. I don't know. But all I can tell you is it doesn't look very edible. I'll eat fava beans, but it's kind of like, in my opinion, only if you got to, or only if you grow up loving them, right? Well, I'm reaching the end of my list here. I haven't got too many others to put on, but all I'm trying to do is to express to everybody out there that so much of your common vegetation, so much of your food, if you eat the wrong parts, you could get sick or you could die. So poison plants exist all around you. I would highly recommend, other than understanding, knowledge helps, and a little caution when any of this. It's not really a problem. I mean, the amount of poison. When was the last time you ever heard anybody be poisoned by tomatoes? I don't know if I have run across too many people that I knew who have ever poisoned themselves with a rhododendron, and so on. These poisonings are not common at all. And usually it takes an awful lot of the stuff anyway, in general. I would not panic. And my observation, I can't say this is true for you, but for me, any pets I have ever had somehow intuitively seem to know these things. I have never seen one of my pets go after a poison plant. They just don't seem to do it. It seems like it's only humans that are dumb enough to do that stuff. Sometimes they're trying to get high or whatever, but it's more of a person problem. Instincts in animals, most of them that still have pretty good instinctual sense, they seem to understand. They know. I don't know. I'm still trying to teach my cat, though, about rat, lungworm, and slugs. She wants to play with the slugs. I don't want her playing with slugs, but that's a whole other story, right? Okay. Aloha, folks. Y'all hang loose. Have a good one.